It's important to understand that the driving force between the normalization of ties between the UAE and Israel, from the UAE perspective, was a desire to wield Israel as a weapon against its rivals, whether it's Qatar or Saudi Arabia or the like, and to use Israel to lobby the White House in its favor and against its rivals in the region. UAE expected that if it offered normalization of ties with Israel, then it would be an equal partner, it would be treated as an equal partner, and it would become the single firm ally of the US, surpassing the likes of Qatar in particular, which currently houses the largest US military base. And this is vital in understanding why Oman, Bahrain, and Sudan became less inclined to normalize ties with Israel when Pompeo went on his Middle East tour. And that's because instead of seeing the UAE being treated as an equal, Oman, Bahrain, and Sudan saw the UAE humiliated. Netanyahu went and bombed Gaza, contradicting Mohammed bin Zayed's statement that he had negotiated on behalf of the Palestinians. And Netanyahu openly refused or openly lobbied the US to ensure that no F-35s would be sold to the UAE, because Netanyahu insisted that Israel should always have the military superiority in the region. In other words, Israel demonstrated that even if you normalize ties with Tel Aviv, that does not mean that you end up being treated as an equal. And that's why when Pompeo went to Sudan, which was expected to normalize ties with Israel, Sudan understood that even if we normalize ties with Israel, that doesn't mean that Washington is going to remove us from the terror list, and we need to keep this leverage as a possibility. And it's the same reason why Oman and Bahrain, when they calculated it, they believe they stood to benefit nothing from normalizing ties with Israel, because UAE benefited nothing, and rather it is better to keep the relations under the table, to keep the relations as they are, instead of incurring the wrath of the populations of the Middle East in the manner that the UAE has done.